So I will build my front end using HTML, make it more attractive using CSS, and add some validations using JavaScript. Okay, and whatever backend things which I need to do, the server calculation, server computation, that I'll be doing with your Django. Okay. Now, just to give a hint, so Django is nothing but your model, view, and template architecture. Okay, so you can design your any website using just directly HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and one database to support it. Let's say MySQL. Okay, but if you are looking for a scalable solution for any application, we need a one framework. Now, what framework will do? It will just provide me a structured approach that how things should be. Okay, so your Django is model, view, template architecture. So model means your actual database. Okay, so I'll just show you. So if you can see model. Okay. So here is the model file. Now what we generally do in model file, we actually define one database structure. That okay, I want whenever I create a separate class, that is actually in the backend, Django will automatically create a table in the database. Okay. So I'm saying here I want this author table, this course category table, and this course table. Okay, and I need to specify what kind of field like I'm looking for, whether it's a character field, whether it's a text field, image field, and everything. Okay, so I will specify the database here.
Now Ritesh will be joining. He's coming down.
Okay, so this is the model file. So model is actually your database. Then template. So it's model. Then second views. Now what are views? So views is nothing but your exact logic. What exactly to be displayed. Okay. So how it works? Whenever someone hits the URL, this URL will be redirected to this particular view. Okay. So I'll just show you the flow. Okay. So let's say someone hits this URL tutorials. Okay. Now if someone hits the tutorial URL, I'm saying that redirect it to this particular view. Okay. So in views.index, I'll be defining this. And here I'm saying that if someone's make a request to this, pass the index.html page. Okay. And that is a template part of it. So all your HTML documents which you have designed, that will be placed at one location, that are all templates. Okay. Your logic, that what exactly data needs to be passed to that template, is defined in your views, and the actual database is your models.py. Okay. So everything is properly structured in your Django. That okay. So at top level there will be project. Then in one project you will create multiple application. Now for each application you will get different URL, views file, and the models file. Okay. So it's just a scalable way to provide to work with your web application. Okay. Now the use case which you are talking about, okay, either you can go with your web application or a desktop application also. Okay. If you make it a web application, then you are making it global, that okay, just hit the URL and you can access it. Okay. So the similar thing, if I'm not wrong, so you can do the same thing with the speed test kind of thing. So I guess you have you visited that Ookla site, Ookla speed test?
Yeah.
Okay, just hit the start button and it's analyze everything and it gives you the answer, right?
Yeah.
So same kind of thing you can do. You can create a URL. Okay, if someone hits that start button, in the background you will give a call to this views, and in this views you have to give a call to this sys OS and subprocess library. Okay, I'll just give you one hint where I exactly use this. Do I have a code here or not? Okay, okay. So from one of my use case, I use the sub process here. Do I have it? Okay. Okay. So this is one method I have written that to generate a HTML content and parse the HTML content. Okay. So now if you observe this code, this is pure Python. Okay. So it's just I have imported this subprocess libraries, and what this subprocess actually is, it will invoke your shell commands, your Linux command from this blank script. So we have seen beautiful soup in which we are invoking the HTML parser and making the request and get request and post request. Okay. Here we are actually executing the some of. So this is my command which I want to actually execute from the command shell. Okay. So I created a sub process and I executed this particular process on this. Okay. So at the top you can create a web application with a simple HTML and CSS GUI. Okay. And at the backend you can use Django, and in the Django you can run this particular subcode. Okay. Um, for that you can explore these three libraries which I told you that one is sys, second is OS, and third is subprocess. Okay. So these three libraries can be used in that case. Okay. And the same use case which you are talking about, right, can be actually used for your server also. That if you want to fetch the parameters from your servers, that also can be done.
So do I need Django for that?
It's not mandatory. It's not mandatory because if you are just fetching the parameters, right? Uh, then I don't think you can. If that's the case, then you can directly do with your normal HTML CSS also.
So example, the requirement is such, like suppose on a router, if I
Uh-huh.
do a show interface, okay,
Uh-huh.
that will show me what is the bandwidth on that interface, what are the
Uh-huh.
CRC errors, and
Uh-huh.
what is the input and output rate.
Okay. Okay.
So, and what I want to do is I'm trying to, if I want to make an application,
Uh-huh.
and every time it will do a polling
Uh-huh.
every
Uh-huh.
5 minutes, and
Uh-huh.
it will, put it in a statistical format.
Okay. 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 Uh, so what we can do, I'll just formalize the statement, okay? And for you, I guess we can make it as a project so that we will be implementing the same. Okay.
Hmm.
So I'll just formalize the statement, and I'll just give you the hints that which library you can use.
Okay.
I'll note down some of the functions also, and maybe work it out. So as a project only, we will do this. Okay.
Okay. Fine.
Okay. Fine. All right.
Yeah.
So this you want to do for your own system, right?
Yeah, for my own any device like a
Okay.
router or a switch or a server, anything.
All right. Okay. Because there is one library for your networking thing. Okay, I'm not exactly remembering the name, but I want to go through the functions which that library provides. Okay, because
Okay.
I think similar things we can get from that library. Okay,
Okay.
so I'll just explore it and I'll just let you know.
Fine. Fine.
Okay, but we will do this as a project for you then.
Okay.
Okay, so we have only two topics to discuss today. Last two topics, and that is the socket programming, where I'm writing, programming and database access using Python. So, Anil, are you comfortable with SQL queries?
No, I have never worked on that.
Never. Okay. Nitish? No, right? Okay. Network programming?
No, I have not
No.
worked on any software thing. I am a network guy.
Ha 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 ha. All right. All right. Okay. Sure. So we will discuss the small two examples for socket, how socket works and what are these. I guess you must be aware of sockets then, right? You must be using
Yes.
it
Yeah.
daily. Yes. Okay. Sure. Python code. Okay. If you want to connect to application, to nodes, we need something to connect. Okay, be it your client server, be it your two servers. We just want to connect these two things. We need a connection between them, and that connection can be your socket. Okay. Now, whenever we say socket, so that you can use to create a client and server architecture. If you have two servers and you want a communication between two servers and you want to send some data, okay. So generally, whenever we have application server and a web server to do the communication between them, generally sockets we are using as a live use case for us. Okay. All right. Now for socket, we need few things. First thing, I need to establish a client and I need to create a server. Okay, and I want to communicate in between this. Okay, so first thing, I need to make sure that these two parties connect to each other. Okay, now these two parties can connect with the help of this socket interface. Okay, now to identify any system, we have this IP address. Okay. So for every system, we generally have one IP address assigned. Whenever you connect to any system, we can use this IP address to identify a party uniquely and communicate with that party. Okay. Next thing we will be using, and that is called as port. Okay. So port can be any random number. Okay. It's just that I will create a server. That server will have some IP address, and I want to host this server for a particular port number, okay? Which means my server will listen to all the requests which are made on the particular IP address and on the particular port, okay? So the live example is whenever we have web applications, right? Take any website, so that website is actually hosted on any particular web server of particular IP address, and all your web applications are hosted on this port number 80. Okay, so whenever in a web browser you hit the URL of that site, at the back end your web browser is connecting a socket. Okay, it is trying to connect to this particular server on this port number 80. Okay, yes, this is very low level programming concept. Okay, a lot of details are actually hidden from the end users, that what exactly happens in the background. Okay, but internally, your web browser is trying to connect to a server at this particular port number. Okay. Similarly, whenever you are using email services, your SMTP server is generally configured on port number 25. Okay. So while sending email, the web browser needs to make sure that it will send the request. It will try to connect on the port number 25. Okay. So generally, we have this port reserved. So from 0 to 100 comes under your reserved category. Then you can use any port number after this to host your application. Okay. So we have a particular set of steps that needs to be followed to create a client and server communication. Okay. So first thing, from the server side, I need to set up the server. Okay. So for that, I will have an IP address. I need to specify one port number. Okay. So once I have this IP and the port number, I need to bind this IP and the port. Okay. So I'm packaging this. This is just a combination that, okay, at this IP, this is the port. Then let's say send file A. Okay. So same on the same server on a different port, I can host something else also. Okay, so there will be specific option for this specific purpose of every IP and the port combination. That this will, if someone try to connect here, it will send a file A. If someone try to connect to this port, it will send file B. Okay, so you have to make sure that you bind your IP address with a port number. Okay, once your binding is done, next step is listen to the request. Okay, so your server will be continuously listening to number of requests from the multiple clients. Okay, now anyone can connect to the your server if that client has the IP and the port number. Okay, we can specify the maximum number of connection which can connect to you. Okay, so first step is setup. So you need to find out the IP and you need to specify the port. Then you have to bind your IP and the port number. Next, your server should listen to the request. Okay, if it's listening, if someone tries to connect it, it's server's responsibility to accept the connection. Okay, now once it accepts the connection, after that it can perform this send or receive option. Okay, so after that it can perform this send and receive data from client to the server. Okay, now on the client side, if you see use state, so client, all it needs to do is client needs to connect on the particular IP address and on the same port number on which server is hosted. Okay, once it is connected, now it can send and receive the data. Okay, so on the client side, it is very simple that all you have to do is just connect to the server. That's it. Okay, but on the server side, if you see, these are the standard processes that I need to bind the IP address to a particular port number so that my service will be available on this particular IP address and on this particular port number. Then I need to listen to the connections. Then if someone try to connect to me, I will accept the connection. And once connection is established, I need to send and receive the data. Okay. Now same steps we will be implementing. So for that we have a library that is socket. Okay. So this socket library will provide me the methods to implement various socket, be it TCP or be it UDP socket. Okay. Now, all right. Okay. So all you have to do is the same thing which we have discussed in case of file operation, that we created one handle, right? Similarly, I am creating the object here, that is socket.socket. Okay, I am creating the object of this class socket. Okay, now for this socket, I can specify two things: what is the family of this socket and what is the type of this socket. Okay, now when it comes to the type, I can specify either this is a TCP socket or this is the UDP socket. Okay. Now, what is a TCP socket? So TCP socket is considered to be the reliable mode of communication that whatever data you are sending, it makes sure that this data is received by the client. Okay. On the other hand, UDP does not guarantees the delivery of data. Okay. So generally, whenever your HTTP application, web application, SMTP, file server application, they generally use the TCP socket. But if you take example of your online gaming, in that case, you need a faster response than the accuracy. Okay. In such case, you can go with your UDP sockets. Okay. So if you want explicitly want to, so defaultly, if you just create a socket object, you are actually creating a TCP socket. Okay. So that is also called as your stream socket. Okay. If you want to create UDP socket, you have to specify datagram socket, if I'm not wrong. Okay, so these parameters also you can specify that what kind of socket you are actually looking for. Okay, now next step is I need IP address and I need a port number, right? So to get to that, we have multiple methods. So let's say this is a server, so I will be configuring this on the same system, right? So that's why I have a method that get host name. Okay. So what this method will do, it will fetch the host name of the current system. Okay. But let's say you want a host name by a domain name, okay, by a particular name of the website. I can use this get host by name. Okay, so I will specify get host by name and I will specify the website name. Okay, the next thing is if you have the IP address, then you can specify, then you can use this get FQDN method. Okay, so what this FQDN means, I will specify the IP address here that uh, uh, on which system I actually want to be considered as the host. Okay, so I have declared one variable and I want to fetch the host. Okay, so I will specify the get host name. So this will give me the current host, okay, the local host. It will be. Okay, I am randomly specifying one number for a port number. Let's say this is 12355. Okay. Next step is I have this host name and the port number. I need to bind it. So to bind, we have a method that is s.bind. Here I will specify the host and the port. Okay. So in this program, everything is a standard set of processes. Okay. All you have to do is implement the same script. Be it any sockets, you will find this seamlessly. Okay. So you have a socket, you created an object, you find out the host name, you will decide the port number on which you want to host, and now you have to bind your host and the port. Okay. Once binding is done using this s.bind method, your server will listen to the request. Okay. So I can specify how many clients it can listen to. Okay. So if I say one, it can max accept connection from one client. If I say five, it can wait for the five connections. Okay. So we discussed till now binding, listening. Next step is if someone tries to connect to it, it should accept the connection. Okay. So for bind, we have very similar method that is s dot bind. For listen, we have listen method. Now to accept, we have this accept method. Okay. If someone tries to connect to this particular server, so your server will accept the connection using this method as dot accept. Okay. Now when it accepts the connection, it will create a new object for that particular client which got connected, and it will get the IP address of the system which got connected to it. Okay. And I can use this particular socket object to send and receive the data. Okay. So in this case, I'm sending the data that this is the data from server to my client. Okay. Whenever you are running a client server architecture, you have to make sure that your server is running in the background while you are actually executing the plan. Okay, so this is the example of my server that I am creating a server on a local host and I'm running it on a port number 123 and 55. Okay, let's take example of client. So on client we have only two steps, that is I need to connect and I need to receive or send the data. Okay, so same thing I'm doing, creating a new socket object. Now for this also I need a host name and a port to which I want to connect. Okay. If my server is on a different location, I can use get FQDN method and I can specify the IP name of the server. Okay, and it will fetch the host value for me. But at the case, for this example, I can go with this get host name because it's a local system. Okay. Now all I need to do, I have this host and I have this port. I just need to connect to that particular server. And once I connect to the server, I just make sure that I'm receiving some data from the server. Okay. So I have this receive method, which will receive this 1,000 characters from the server. Okay. So I have specified the limit here. Okay. And I'm just printing the data which I received. Okay. Now how to execute such programs? So I have this client and I have a server. So I need to make sure that my server is running in the background whenever I'm running the client. Okay. So that is the reason I'm running my server from command prompt. So first thing I need to do, I need to go to that particular location, cd desktop Python code, code If I do dir here, so I have this server.py. Okay. Now to execute any Python file, I'll just say Python, then file name that is server1.py. But I need to make sure that this file continuously run in the background. Okay. For that, I will specify this ampersand.
Not able to see.
Yeah. I just noticed this. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now you can see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I just went to that particular directory where my file is, and to execute any Python file, all I need to do is Python file name dot py. Okay. Now in this case, I actually need to execute this in the background. Okay. So for that, I will just put ampersand after the file name. Okay. Now if I hit enter, okay, you can see it's still waiting. Okay, so it's executing, but it hasn't finished, so it's not back on the command prompt, so it's still waiting. Okay, now the reason this is waiting, this is because of your listen method. Okay, so we have specified listen equal to 1, so it's actually waiting for at least one person to connect to the server. Okay, now going to the client, I'm saving this, I'm executing it. Okay, now you can see that here I don't have this statement, that is, this is the data from server. This is something I am getting from this server.py file. Okay, if I go back to the command prompt, I actually printed what exactly I am getting when someone tries to connect to me. Okay, so here you can see that it will show me the IP address of the system which got connected. Okay, so this will give you all the information about your client. So you can see this is the socket. So if it's socket underscore string, which means this is a TCP socket. Okay. If it's datagram, which means this is a UDP socket. Okay. So this is one example in which I have created a server and I am sending the data to client. Okay. Now I have another example, and that is of echo server. So this echo server is really important whenever you are setting up your client and server architecture for the first time. You have to make sure that your client and server are communicating well. Whatever data you are sending, you will send it to the server, and your server should send it back. And I'll just cross check whatever data I sent and whatever data I received is correct or not. Okay. So if you see the steps will be again exactly similar. So this is still executing. Okay. So now in this example, so this is the example of my echo server. Again, I'm performing the same step. So this is a server program. So I'm importing some socket library. Okay. Then I need this host and a port name. Okay. I'm changing the IP address, the port number to 12360. I need to bind the host name and the port number using this bind method. I need to make sure that I listen to the request. Okay. Now here I'm only getting one, that's why I'm directly writing s.accept, and whatever connection I get, I'm printing the IP address of the server. Okay. Now once it receives the data, I'm continuously receiving the data from the client. Okay. So here instead of first writing the send method, I'm saying receive method. Okay. Now whenever you say s.accept, you have this connection object. Okay. Now this is your point. If you want to connect to this particular client, you can use this connection object. Okay. So I'm saying connection dot receive. That means whatever data your client will send, you will try to receive this data. Okay. And you're printing the same data. Okay. Now, as this is an echo server, what I want, I just need to make sure that whatever data I have received, I just want to send it back to the client. Okay, just to validate in case if everything is fine or not. Okay, So here I have this. So again, all the communication, what I need to do with the socket, I will do with this connection object. Okay. So I'll say connection dot send all and send all the data to the client. Okay. On the client side, if you see,
Kunal,
yeah.
what is this command? I have not seen this connection comma address is equal to s dot accept.
So this is same, right? So here in this program, if you see, I am accepting the connection, right? So stepwise, it will be bind first, then listen,
Yeah.
right? And then accept.
So accept, like we are defining two things here in
So,
comma.
so it's the same as your enumerate function. What your enumerate does, it returns two things, right? Index and the value.
Okay.
Okay. So same thing, your s dot accepts actually return two values. One is your socket object,
Okay.
okay, and second is the IP address that of the client which got connected. Okay.
Okay. And here, what is socket object doing?
So this socket object will be actually the bridge. Okay.
Okay.
If you want to send the data to particular client which got connected, that is, if you want to send the data to this address, right?
Okay.
That thing you can do using your socket object. Okay. Which means I am explicitly want to send the data to this.
Okay.
Okay. So here just the names are different that I'm accepting as connection and address. That's the only difference.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm accepting this and whatever connection I got, send all the data, the whatever I receive. Now on the client side, I just need to connect to the server, send some data and check the received data, right? So create a socket object, connect. For connection, again, I need host and a port. Connect to it and send the data to this. If you send the data, then be ready to receive some data also. Once you receive the data, then print whatever you have received. Okay. So this is the example of echo server. I guess we don't need this. So here I'm sending the data. Again, I'm receiving the data, and whatever data we got back, I'm just printing here. Okay. Just make sure your port numbers are correct. So in this case, it's 12360. Here I'm also making 123 and 60. Okay. To execute this, again, I need to make sure that my server is running in the background. So I'm going to the command prompt again. Let's cd desktop slash python code slash code 3 slash socket. Okay. Try to GIR. So I have this e server 1. So to execute this, I'll say python uh, eserver1.py and space ampersand, okay, to make sure that my server is running in the background. Hit enter. Now your server is waiting to someone to connect. I'm going back to the client, save it, execute it. Okay, you can see it's now printing welcome to Python. Okay, let's go back to the server. You can see, okay, I got connection from this particular IP address and it just printed the received data. Okay, so these are the very common steps in your socket programming. So using same thing, you can design your chat application also, that you will just listen to the multiple requests and whoever connects to it, you will just send all the data which you have received to the all the other person. Okay. So on the similar line, you can design your own chat application with the socket programming also. Okay. So take any socket programming approach, these steps will be common. That first, in case of server, you have to identify the host and the port number, then bind it, listen, accept, and then send or receive. On the client side, it will be just connect and then send and receive. Okay. Yes, this is very low level programming. Okay. Unless and until you have a use case, it's bit difficult to actually visualize the things. Okay. Anil, any queries?
No.
No, right? I guess this must be very. I guess this must be completely off topic for you. Completely right. But in case of your data science and machine learning, you don't need this. You don't need this. Consider this as extra topic. Okay. So this is your socket interface. Next, we will discuss that how we can work with databases using Python. Okay.
What are the databases?
In a sense, I will have data in my database, okay, and I need to connect it, and I need to perform some queries on that database. Okay. Now, whenever you have a data, you have an option that you can either store it into the file or you can store it into the database, right? The advantage of database is your retrieval is faster and you can get the actual data which are looking for. Okay. So database, whenever you consider any database, so popular example of your database are, I guess, SQL, Oracle. Nowadays there is NoSQL which is in demand. Then we have MongoDB. Okay. So your SQL is actually open source. That is the reason it is one of the most widely used database. Oracle, it's a licensed product, so you may find that there is industry. So industry is heavily relying on Oracle. Okay, and NoSQL is now gaining popularity. Okay, all right. So whenever I say database,
Is it open source?
which one? NoSQL? Yes. NoSQL and Mongo both are open source.
Okay.
Okay. If you see the NoSQL, actually NoSQL, okay, so first we'll discuss the normal database structure and then we will discuss about how your NoSQL is different. Okay. All right. So whenever I say database, I have a structure that there will be a database at the top level and inside one database, there will be multiple tables. Okay. Now tables will have columns and rows, right? Simple example, if I take example of employee, then I will have employee ID, then name of that employee, contact details, and let's say salary, something like this, right? And I will store the data as 1, ABC, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and let's say 28, 1, 2, 3, okay, something like this. Okay, I can write n number of record A, B, C, P, Q, R, and this thing. Okay, something like this. So this is table 1. Then I can create another table into my database. Let's say if this is my department table. The department ID and department name. Okay. So I'll be storing rows. I'll be storing the data in the format of rows. Okay. So whenever we use database, they provide an approach to get some particular data. Okay. So let's say you want all the records from the database. Okay. Or let's say you want a record for employee ID is equals to 101. Okay. Or you want all the records for which salary is actually greater than 50,000. Okay. Or let's say you have a joining date as an attribute. You want all the employee records for which your joining date is, let's say 1st Jan 2018. Okay. So you can fire some queries and you can retrieve the data which you have already stored in the database. Okay? So for that, for a few things you need to first create the database. Okay. Then you have to insert the values. Okay. And then let's say you can perform this operations, okay, which includes something called select, then update, okay, then we have this join operations, okay, and you can perform some delete operations. Okay. So first you have to create your database, you have to make sure that you add values to the database, and then only you can perform some queries. Unless and until you have the data, there's no use case of firing querying on that particular database, right? So to do same thing with Python, now we have two separate things. One is Python code, okay, and second is your queries. Okay, so these two things are completely separate. Okay, now for a database example, defaultly Python provides a database that is SQLite. Okay, now this SQLite is actually a light version of your MySQL. Okay, so the query syntaxes which is used in your MySQL will be exactly similar in SQLite. Okay, so if it's a small number of records, your SQLite is considered to be faster than MySQL. Okay, but the problem with your SQLite is it's not a scalable database. That means if you want to store huge amount of numbers and if you want to fire a query which is very memory intensive, then in case of performance, your SQLite is never preferred. Okay, but if it's very if the data requirements are small and you don't need to fetch much records, then you can go with your SQL. Okay, but the syntax wise, both will be same. Okay, now so how to work with this? Now we have very few syntaxes in front of in terms of Python. Okay, so for a demo, we'll start with SQLite. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to import SQLite 3 module. Okay, so this module will provide me the functionality to perform database operation. Okay, now as I said, we have two different parts, that is Python part and the query part. Okay, now if you see, Python is a case sensitive language, but your database languages, be it your MySQL, be it your Oracle, be it your SQLite, okay, these are not case sensitive. Okay, so if you're firing up the queries from your Python code, you can use this, that all Python code you will specify in a lowercase, that is the required syntax. Okay, and all query part you will write in all caps. Okay, so that this will give you the clear separation that okay, this is not a Python part, this is the SQL part. Okay, any queries so far?
No.
Okay. So first thing is, you can relate it to your file operations also, right? So there we perform the open operation, right? Open first, right? So in case of open, whenever we specify the write mode, that even if the file does not exist, it creates a new file. On the similar line, all first thing you have to do is you have to connect to a particular database. Okay. Now, if I specify something which does not exist, it will create a new file form at the same location where your file is stored. Okay. So first thing is to connect to the particular database. So all I need to do, I just need to say connect SQLite3.connect and the database name. Okay. At the end, I will say connection.close. Okay. So this is just to connect to the database and close the connection. Okay. If your database does not exist, it will create. If your database already exists with some existing data, it will connect to that particular database. Okay. Uh, now, this statement will create a database for you. Okay. So let's go line by line. So what I'm doing, I'm commenting everything. Mm, okay. So I have only statement that is connection dot close, and I have this connection. Okay. If I save it and if I execute this, you can say it has created this test 15. Okay, and this is the database file. Okay, so it has created a new database file for me. Now this is a blank file which does not contain any table, nothing. Okay, I need to create a table structure, right? Now generally we have, for that we have this create table queries. Okay, so what is the syntax of that query is, I will specify create table. Okay, so this is the name of the query, that is create table. If it does not exist, create a new one. Okay, so syntax is create table table. Okay, so I'm specifying the table name is employee. Okay, so create table table name, and I need to specify the attributes which I want to add into the table. Okay, and that should be into the parenthesis. Okay, so I am saying that I want attributes like ID, name, age, and address. Okay, so in terms of your SQL, you need to specify the data type also. So here I'm specifying this ID field is integer, this name field is text, this age field is integer, and this address field is characters. Okay, now the data types in your SQL will be different. Okay, so so you have to explicitly specify what is the format of this particular data. Okay. So syntax is create table, table name, and the format of the table. Okay. Now we have something called primary key. Okay. Any idea about primary key? Okay.
No.
So what is primary key? So generally, if we decide a particular column as a primary key, okay, then the logic is using that particular key, I can uniquely identify any particular record. Okay, if I say employee ID is a primary key, which means I will add only unique values into this column. Okay, and I need to compulsorily add a value for this. Okay, I cannot keep this particular field as blank. Okay, so that is the reason this is unique and this is not null. Okay, that is the reason if I take get me the value for which employee ID is 1, there will be exactly one record. Okay, if I say get me an employee for which employee ID is 15, for this primary key field I cannot store, so your SQL will not allow you to store duplicate values. Okay, so that's why using this column you can uniquely identify each element. Okay, each row you can uniquely identify. Okay, so same thing you can specify. So I'm just saying that this ID is my primary key field. Okay, so this cannot be null. Same thing I'm saying for the name field also you have to enter some data. For age field also you have to compulsorily enter some data. Okay, so this is what structure I have specified for my query. So syntax create table table name. Okay, and then in parenthesis you will specify what columns you need, and columns will be separated by semicolon. Okay, after that you need separated by comma, and after the query you need to put semicolon. Okay, now this is the part from your query side. Okay, so you need basics of your queries to write all this query. Okay, from Python perspective we have only one function, that is connection.execute. Okay, so be it any query, if you want to execute any SQL query, all you have to put is create a connection to the particular database and use this query object, use this method connection.execute. Okay, so using this method you can fire any SQL query from Python. Okay, so first I'm creating one table. Okay, next step I will do is insert some record into the table. Okay, Now for that, we generally have this insert query. So syntax for that is insert into table name. Okay. Then you need to specify for which columns you are actually want to add the queries. Okay. Now here it should be matching with the fields which you have given at the top. Okay. So this ID. So I need to specify this ID. This name, it should be name, age. Okay. So I cannot write age 2, age 3, something like this. Okay. So whatever column you are writing here, it should already exist whenever you are creating the table.
Three times double quotes.
Okay. So the reason is, if you see, I am writing multi-line string. Okay. So in Python, a string is anything which is enclosed in a single quote. String is anything which is enclosed in double quotes. Okay. Or if you have a multi-line string, I need to use triple quotes. Okay. Here my query I'm writing in multiple lines. That's why what I'm doing, I'm putting everything in a triple quotes. Okay. So all I need to do, I need to give a call to this execute method. So what this execute method, the entire query I need to write in a triple quotes. Okay. And pass it to this execute function. Okay. That's the only thing we need to do. Okay. In case of insert also, I'm writing this execute method, that is connection.execute, and again I will specify the query. So here let's say I'm saying insert into, and I need to specify the table in which I want to add the data. Okay. So these are the column in which I want to add the values, and the value exactly are, let's say, let's start from 1. Okay. So again, the method you will use is connection.execute only. Okay. So I'm adding these two values. So same query I'm firing again, that is connection.execute, and pass the SQL query. SQL query is insert into. So if I want to add some more records, or I can write a for loop also to insert the values to the database. Okay. So here I'm just writing two values. So the Python you can use, let's say you have a data in your files, right? And you want to transfer the data into your database. Okay. Now this is very tedious operation. So that thing you can automate using your this particular script. That you will write your normal file operation, open the query, read one line at a time. So all the data which you have in a file, you can transfer it into your database using Python. Okay. So I'm adding these two things. Now if you want to fetch the records, so we have the select query for that. Okay. So if you want to create the table, we have this create table query. If you want to insert, the query is insert into. If you want to get the data from the database, we have this select query. Okay. Now before that, I need to save the changes to the database. Okay. So for that, I need to run this commit query. Now again, syntax from Python side, it will be connection.execute and write your SQL part here. Okay, dot commit. So how to run a now select query? Okay, so if I execute this, I will add two values to my database. Okay.
Kunal, is this insert into, is it specific to the database or is it specific to Python?
No, this is completely your SQL syntax.
Okay.
Okay. So if you compare the syntaxes of your Oracle and MySQL, okay, uh, syntaxes are almost similar. There will be some slight differences. Okay, so that is the reason I'm saying that these are some standard queries. That if you want to create a table, I'll go with this structure. Okay, so be it your Oracle or be it your SQL. Okay, inserting into the database, if I'm not wrong, in Oracle and SQL it's same. That insert into table name and this ID. Okay. So this is the standard query in your SQL. It's not related to Python at all. The only thing which is related to Python is your connection.execute. That's it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So this is your SQL part completely. Okay. Now, to select query. So let's discuss your syntax of select first. So syntax of select is select. You have to select which are the columns you are looking for. Okay, so here I'm saying all the columns. So I will say ID, name, address, and salary, and from employee. Okay, so what this select query will do? It will fetch all the records from this particular table. Okay, so it will fetch name, ID, name, address, and salary of all the employees from this employee table. Okay, so syntax is select column names from table name. Okay, now again, if you see, so this is your connection dot execute. So run your select query. Now it will give you one object. Okay, so that is called your cursor object, which is iterable object. Okay, so if you have multiple rows in your table, so what this object will do, if you try to iterate over this object, in each iteration it will give you one row at a time. Okay, so your one row will be your one record. Okay, so let's say you have 100 records. So this cursor object, you can iterate over it, just write for row in cursor. So in each iteration you will get one record at a time. Okay, so let's execute till now. So till now what we have done, connected to a particular database. So for that we have used connection.connect. Then we have created a table using this create table query. From Python side only I'm using connection.execute. Once table is created successfully, I need to insert the records. So I'm trying to insert these two records. Okay. After inserting the record, now I'm running the select query on this, and I'm printing the result that what is exactly present in the database. Okay. So save it and execute it. So now you can see that it is printing me these two values. That is, it added these values to the database and it is printing me one. So each row is actually a tuple. Okay. So each row is returned as your tuple. Okay. Again, I said the employee ID is a primary key, right? So now if I execute my program again, it will again execute this select insert into queries. Okay, but I said these are the primary keys, and if I specify these are the primary keys, I cannot add duplicate values to my database. Okay, so if I execute my program again, it will give me error, that is still integrity error, that employee ID. Okay, so that is the reason I cannot add a duplicate value, because I specified this as a primary key. But if I make it 3 and a 4, and if I execute again, it will add these two values, and that is the reason now when I run the select query, now it will fetch me 4 records. Okay. So yes, I guess this query part will be a bit different, as this is something completely new for you guys. Okay. All right. What the basic understanding of this create, insert, and select query? Anil, any queries so far?
No.
No, right? Okay. Um, the next will be your update operation. Okay. So now you have records in your table. Now you want to, so we have seen how to fetch the records, so that I can fetch using select query. Okay. Now let's say I want to perform some update operation. Okay, so this is example of the update operation. So for that I need to execute update query. Okay, so syntax of update query is update table name, and then you have to specify which field you are trying to update. So I'm saying set the salary to 80,000, but for which record I need to set the salary? So I need to set the salary where your employee ID field is equals to 2. Okay, so at the moment the value for 2 is 15,000, but for that now I want to save value of 80,000. Okay, now the advantage of a database is whenever you actually commit the changes, no matter you close your program and open it again, If you try to fetch the values, your answer will be stored in the database. Okay, so it will be there with you for your reference. Okay, so it's not that when you close it, if you open it, your all data is flushed. So when I just add commit, now if I forget this commit statement, you are actually executing the query, but you are not adding to the database. Okay, just to save it on the database, you need to commit to the, you need to run this commit query. So after updating, I'm running this commit and then I'm running the select query again. Okay, so mm, I'll just comment out this insert into statements because I don't want to insert any new statements now. Okay, so at the top, the first four records are from your first select query, which shows that initially the answer for what is was 15,000, but then I executed the update operation and now it changed the operation to answer to 80,000, salary to 80,000. Okay, so again from Python perspective, it's the same thing that connection dot execute. Okay, similar to this, I can run the delete operation. That here I'm saying delete from employee where ID equals to, okay, and then commit the changes. And here I'm running my select query again just to see all the results. Now if I execute this, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are the your old operation, first select query. I printed again after updating. Now the value is already updated, so there's no change here. But last you can see there is second record is not present. Okay, so I removed it from the database. Okay, so this is an example of your delete queries. Okay, so for Python perspective, we have only two things. First, you have to connect to the database, and then you have to keep on executing this execute method. Okay, but yes, to run the queries, you should be good with your SQL queries. Okay, so for that you can refer the W3 school sites. Okay, go through all the basic of queries so that because we have a lot of things there. Um, so we have this create table. So create table, then we have insert table, then we have this update operation. Now for delete operations, we have multiple, that is delete, then drop, and then truncate, something like this. Then we have various clauses, that is where clause, having clause, then between clause, then we have some wildcards. Okay, so yes, it's altogether a different area to explore. Okay, but plus we have concept of joins, which is very popular. Then we have concept of normalization. Okay, so all these things are there. We can explore this. Okay, but from Python perspective, we only need two things. Okay, that is connection dot connect and then this execute method. Okay, so just to make it clear, so we will be using this lowercase for your Python, and for clear distinction, I can write all the queries into uppercase. Okay, because your databases are not case sensitive. Okay, now this was the example to connect to your SQLite. Okay, if instead if you just want to use MySQL in this case, okay, the only thing will change is how to connect to a database. Okay, so in our example, we just use SQLite 3.connect and the database name, right? But in case of MySQL, you will only change this first line. That first thing you have to do is you need to download MySQL DB from the website and you have to install it. Okay. Once this is installed, you will import this particular library and you will change only one line, that is mysql.db. So while setup, you need to set all these things, that is host, username and password, for this. So same things you need to write while you are trying to connect to a database. Okay? And rest everything will remain the same. That is, be it any database, you will use this connect and then your execute method to run your SQL queries. Okay? Now coming back to your NoSQL. So NoSQL is also open source. Um, Instead, all your database, that is Oracle, SQLite, MySQL, stores the data in a format of your records, right? But here, in case of NoSQL, your data is actually stored in format of a key and a value pair. Okay, so this is actually generally used for unstructured data where you do not have a fixed structure on the number of columns in the record. Okay, let's say for one record you have 5 columns, for another record you have 10 columns, for the next you have 7 columns. Okay? You have a structure like this, then in that case, generally NoSQL is preferred. So NoSQL, the popularity of NoSQL is getting is increasing reason why dealing with this data science, machine learning, okay, or this big data side, we have this uncertainty in data that we will not always get the same results. Okay, so either I can work on with CSV files. Um, or my normal text files which are comma separated files as a data set, okay, or I can use my database as a set of data to perform some analysis. Okay, so source can be anything. Okay, but from Python perspective it is very easy, only two methods are there. Okay, rest everything is your very part. Okay, any queries? No. All right. Okay, so this is actually end of the course. Okay, after this, we have a project. So one project I'm planning is on automation. Okay, that you have a data in Excel sheet. Okay, and so that data is your email IDs. Okay, so you will have one email template, and your Python script should pick the data and the template. Let's say even if you have multiple templates, it should read from that file and it should automatically send all the emails to that particular list. Okay, so that is one. Okay, we have one or more plus Anil, I'll formalize that statement again. Okay,
Yeah.
and I'll just look into the libraries which we can use. Okay, and then maybe we can work it on together. Okay,
Yeah. So what was the name? One was Django, and another one was called um,
PyQuit, PyQuit.
YQT.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, is there any topic which you think this is complex from Python perspective, or you have any queries related to that, something like this? Because now I guess we have time. We have 1 hour. Anything which you want to repeat that we can discuss it again? No? Alright. Okay. Okay, then we will stop here then. Okay. So I'll just mail you guys the statement. Okay. And then if you have any issues, then we will set up another session. Okay. All right. Sounds good, Anil? Anil, can you hear me? All right. Ah, I guess you have missed a lot of